Gwendoline Christie, welcome to Bullseye. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled. I want you to know ahead of time, just like right off top, cards on the table, I mostly want to talk about goats.
Oh, brilliant. Good. I'm thrilled. Yes, great.
I love goats.
Do you?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. So did you love goats before you were a celebrity goat wrangler?
Oh, wow. First of all, nobody's ever given me that title. It feels like a sort of official recognition. Secondly,
On behalf of the Goat Council.
yeah, well, I am honored. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The answer genuinely is no. I've been an animal fan all my life, but, I never had any particular predilection for goats until I started to study them and livestock, animals out to pasture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of.
Oh, so what is it? What you're talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean,
sheeps?
yes, I mean, I did spend a long time in fields with sheep and with cows.
Uh-huh.
I mean, for months and months, over a year, to develop a sense of ease about being around animals like that. And there weren't goats readily available, but there were sheep, plenty of sheep readily available. And I have a couple of friends that are sheep farmers. So cows are a totally different kettle of fish. In particular, the Frisians are really frisky. They're like juvenile delinquents. So you can't enter a field without them possibly intimidating you. I once had quite a dangerous situation where it was a public footpath. I went into a field and the cows, and I approached slowly, which I'm not sure is the right thing to do. The cows all started to gather,
Yes.
gang-like,
Uh-huh.
and I slowed down. I was very intimidated by them. And then more and more gathered at that sort of lumbering pace from all corners of the field. And they absolutely sensed that they were intimidating me. And I tried to summon the confidence and the sort of, not bravado, but basic confidence and boldness to navigate them. But as I started moving down the field, they moved down and the cows bullied me. And the cows bullied me back out of the field because they were starting to get quite frisky.
Uh-huh.
And I could sense there was a possible impending violence. The sheep, however, I've never been bullied by sheep. And I'm grateful for that. But observing goats was delightful.
Oh, wait, let's go back to the cows. We'll get back to goats.
Wow.
What is a Frisian cow?
Black and white cow.
Oh, that's just a classic cow.
I suppose, I mean, don't ask me, I'm no kind
like
of...
cow spots.
I'm not a cow aficionado,
Right.
But from my basic layman understanding, it's a specific breed, and they are the black and white cows, the Frisians, and they're particularly frisky.
So did you not meet goats until you were on set with goats?
Oh, I did, yes, I found goats. And actually I was brought up drinking goat's milk. So maybe something in that, after all these years, has manifested itself in this role.
Was that just because someone in your family was lactose intolerant? Or?
It's because, I mean, if you want to know, it's because I was lactose intolerant at that stage. So the goats gave me life, and here they are giving me life again.
My whole thing with this show is just to try and, break into those celebrity gossip, pieces, like getting the Sun with just a little tidbit of something that's breaking news. I think this lactose intolerance thing is going to be our ticket to success.
I believe you have kicked down the gate.
Unless you already told like Jonathan Ross about that or something.
I've been waiting to tell the world about this, and
Okay.
I decided that you were the chosen one.
Thank you. The goats were in the show before you were on the show,
Yes.
right? They preceded you.
The goats take precedence.
Her name's Miss Casey. She's our former wellness director.
Wellness. We don't abide such fripperies here.
And I know you had been a fan of the show and kind of, I don't want to say talked your way onto the show because I don't think you asked to be
what
on
kind
the
of
show.
thing is that to say?
But manifested yourself onto the show.
That sounds horribly.
You describe for me how you would characterize. I don't mean that you like used car salesman your way on.
I feel like you are saying that I
They were excited
brutalized.
that you
brutalized people to get onto the show that I liked.
Nice show you have here. It'd be awful if something happened to it.
I brutalized.
No, what I'm saying is you ran into Ben Stiller one day.
Yes.
Or one evening.
Yeah. Well, it was genuinely bizarre. I'd watched Escape at Dannemora, and I thought it was a really brilliant piece of work. I was incredibly surprised that it was directed by Ben Stiller because it was out of genre from what we've known of him. And I thought it was really dazzling. I really loved the characters and the performances. You know, it'd been a long time since we'd seen that sort of character work on television. I really adore Benicio del Toro and Patricia Arquette are just two of my favorite actors. So I was fascinated by that, and I thought, oh, it feels like a new portal's opening here. But of course, you're never going to have a meeting with Ben Stiller. I'm never going to meet Ben Stiller. And I've been incredibly lucky to be nominated for an Emmy, and I was at the award show with my partner, and I said quite uncharacteristically, "Let's take a photograph of us." And I took it, and I looked at it, and I saw Ben Stiller in the corner of the photo, and I sort of gasped. I said, "Oh God, it's Ben Stiller!" And then I thought, no, what if he thinks I took the photo on purpose? He's gonna think I'm weird. And then I honestly felt a tap on the shoulder and looked up, and it was Ben Stiller. And I thought, oh, he's gonna have a go at me. He was so nice about my performance in Game of Thrones, and it was very surreal because I did not expect that whole thing to happen. And then, I'm learning to act on these moments, these strange things that happen. And I said to my manager, I really want to meet Ben Stiller because I loved Escape at Dannemora, and we had a sort of weird exchange. I never, ever thought it would result in actually sitting down with him. Well, it did. And he told me about Severance. It's in 2019. So I wondered what he might do with this series he was describing. And he told me that there was no part for me in the show. I was hugely disappointed. There was no part for me, as usual. But then commenced a global pandemic. And everybody was manacled to their screens, watching things. And so when I learned that Severance was going to be on television, I was interested to watch it. And I was, from the opening shot, I gasped because it was just so in tune with what I wanted to see. And I was truly captivated by it and fascinated by it. And also because of the camera work on that show is unlike what you normally see. You know, often camera work on television shows can feel prescriptive and adhering to a standard format. But there was great imagination and artistry, real artistry in how it was shot. And you saw someone's vision, and it felt really refreshing because it felt in this television landscape someone was putting themselves out there and saying, this is what I see. It's uncompromising. And in that is a real singularity and freshness.
One of the things about the way TV is made, usually, at least in the United States, is often a heavyweight director will direct the pilot of a show. Their job is to set a template for the rest of the show. And if it's like CSI, Chicago or whatever, it'll be Spike Lee or David Fincher or something will come in and direct the pilot, and they'll get like back end points because they're so important on establishing the thing. But mostly it's their job in that pilot to just set the rules for the whole rest of the show. And so every other television director that comes after them on most shows is essentially a craftsperson who's following that template. It's very unusual for a television show to have, it's common for a television show to have like writerly authorial voice, but it's relatively unusual for a television show to have a director's authorial voice throughout, which definitely Severance does.
Yes. Yes. I mean, television is still something that's evolving for me. My first passion is film. So I'm always interested in and drawn to films in a television format. That's what I like to work on. It feels like there's more creativity that way. And actually, as someone that was I was trained in theatre, so the way that they trained us, in a sense, was old-fashioned but they remarked on this constantly, that we were being trained to do regional theatre. So we were being trained to be able to go into theatre productions and possibly do 2 or maybe even 3 productions at the same time that were revolving, and you do 8 shows a week and you would tour around the country, and that's how you made your money. And that that's how you made a living. I mean, not your money, how you made a living. And that if you were lucky, you would get bits of television. But that view, that sort of prehistoric view, was that television was an inferior art form. That
You're telling me that in theater school, they were telling you that theater was better than television?
Of course.
Yeah. Of course. What else is there?
But they were aware that the landscape of acting was changing. But it was an acting school. It wasn't a theater school. It was primarily an acting school because it was a classical training with a method approach. So what that meant was that idealistically and rather unrealistically, they were training us to be artists.
I was reading old interviews you'd given, and there was one where you were talking about Tilda Swinton in Orlando. And the word that you used to describe her on screen was otherworldly.
Mm.
And which is, I mean, anybody who's seen Tilda Swinton in anything can tell it for sure, will agree. And I thought that must have been exciting for someone who on camera reads as otherworldly often, because you don't look like other television actors. You know what I mean? Like, sincerely, you don't. Like TV specifically, theater is sort of another game.
Okay.
But like TV is like a huge part of it is, what do you look like when the camera looks at you once briefly?
Okay. Is that what it is?
I mean, it's not all of it, but it's a significant portion of it, much more so than theater, I would say.
Okay.
Well, because I literally don't think there is anyone in film and television that presents on screen the way that you do. So if it's not a sui generis part, like if it's not like you're not there against a bunch of other like yous.
Okay. I suppose so. I mean, what a blessing and a curse.
For sure.
I mean, I suppose I mean, for a long time, and still sometimes I am told, there's no parts view. They have to create parts view. But I don't think I'm that different from other human beings, really. Not really.
Not in real life.
No. Would you think something happens?
I think that
That's nice.
the screen
Go on,
is
please
different.
say that.
I think the screen is different. I mean, like, so Brienne of Tarth, right?
Yeah.
Brienne of Tarth is defined in part by this extraordinary physicality. So they have to find somebody that can embody that physicality while also performing a very complex internal life.
Yes.
Like, otherwise it doesn't work.
Well, that part was a kind of revelation, you know. I didn't think that part would ever exist. It was a different stage of my life, you know, and the world was in such a different place. When we think about 2010, radically different. You know, we didn't have streaming services really. I mean, we did, but they weren't as prolific as they are now. And HBO was very much, you know, the sort of zenith of a television experience and much closer in film, more of a sort of extended film experience. But, you know, at drama school, they told me, if you're very, not me, all of us, if you're very, very lucky, one day you may find a part that speaks to you. And in it speaking to you, in a sense, it does the work for you. I didn't think I'd ever quite find that. In part, I suppose it was because I was really struggling with myself, if I'm honest. You know, like, I understand what you're trying to say. Society it still does sometimes, but on the whole then found me difficult to digest. I've never been a conventional choice. But that part was like a bolt from the blue. Because the reason I was called up for it was that the casting director had seen me in my first ever job, which is the Royal Shakespeare Company. And it was really, that's what I always wanted. I always wanted my first job to be at Royal Shakespeare Company. And I was working with a brilliant director there called Declan Donlan. It was a great experience. He'd seen me there 5 years prior. So when he got the breakdown of what was required from the part, he communicated to my agent, if she takes it seriously, I think that she could be really right for this. But also nobody thought I would get it because I'd just been told consistently, you'll never work on screen because you're too tall and you're too unconventional looking and you're too large overall and you're too much taller than most men. And I just thought, gosh, how limited. I really did. I thought, well, that isn't very interesting. Like, how does that reflect the human experience that I'm having out just on the street or at night or in the park or going to the shops or being in the supermarket? I mean, I feel like maybe it's because I was living in London. I feel like I was having a very different experience all of the time with lots of different people showing different facets. Thank goodness I always had a strong sense somehow from nowhere, alongside the, you know, crippling lack of self-confidence, a real resilience, like an extraordinary resilience. And I think it's because I always worked with artists. You know, a lot of people found it deeply confusing that I had a dedicated interest to the arts and passionate interest in fashion. And they felt that somehow that made me non-serious about the craft of acting. But actually what I found was that it was enriching my sense of acting. I wanted to come from another place. I wanted to have another experience. I wanted to bring something more than just carving dialogue.
Those were Stark men.
I don't serve the Starks. I serve Lady Catelyn. I told her I'd take you to King's Landing, and that's what I'm going to do. Stay.
I mean, one of the things I like about that character, and maybe my favorite character on that show, and I love the show, is I think in that kind of story, often when things are taking on mythic proportions, like the conflicts of the character and the complications of the character are often kind of baked in and static. And like that can still be really cool. Like that's what Spider-Man is like. And I like Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Spider-Man doesn't grow.
Yeah.
And even when characters like that do grow, it can be a pretty sort of linear, sort of Joseph Campbell-y, they grow in the way that we expect them to grow, right? And she is actually a really rich character. Like she is a human character in a way that a woman who's as big as the dudes who swings a sword around would not be on any other television program.
No. No. And not at that time either. But the books provided all of the history of the character. I mean, there's so much in there. It fires the imagination, unlike anything else. I mean, you know, the descriptive quality is vast and the detail is minuscule. So you've got that for nothing. You've got the tomes there. You've got the guidebooks there. Also, and I'd never seen on screen an experience like mine, which was, you know, I do hope at some point I'll transcend, you know, the tall woman that's managed to be an actor. Isn't it so great that she's managed to overcome this terrible tragedy and just be a human being? But that's the world. It was Brienne's story.
Look. A childhood must have been awful for you. Were you a foot taller than all the boys? They laughed at you, called you names.
I knew it. I knew the pain of it. I knew what it was like to receive that aggression or negativity from society sometimes in a very, very real way. It changed my life. It also forced me to confront all the things about myself that I was really terrified about and I wanted to ignore: my height, my size, my superhuman strength.
I mean, you had to like train, I'm sure,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
for real.
Oh yeah, but I, you know, I've been fascinated by the idea of a method acting process ever since I can remember. I mean, Brando and On the Waterfront was a revelation to me. The moment with the glove. I mean, just it was a moment of reality. It took my breath away, and so. You know, studying Strasbourg, I wanted to transform so fully. So I had to look at the similarities and differences between me and the character. And I knew that I was in for a slog. You know, and not only would I have to examine and bring on show to the world my own androgyny, the inconsistencies in my face and appearance, the unconventional nature of myself. I'd had to work really hard, working out. I'd had to really take a look at my body. It was never about aesthetics because it wouldn't have been at that time. It would never have been about having a six-pack. It was about having the stamina and the strength. And I changed my diet. I initially lost weight for the role. And then I put it all back on in muscle. I worked with a weight trainer. I was completely dedicated to it. I started kickboxing. I did 6 weeks of preparation before the audition, very intensively.
I have an outfit question for you.
Oh, gosh.
Which is, and it's not about the time that you dressed in a fashion show like the world's most extravagant paper carnation.
I don't know which one that was.
As a Japanese designer, I mean, it was incredible. It was like a Rose Parade float, but just frills everywhere, all the way around, lots of colors, big train.
Tomo Koizumi.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm asking you about, though.
Okay.
And I'm not asking you about the time that you were dressed as a terrifying doll. I'm asking you instead about your clothes on Wednesday.
Right.
Which is a show where looking extraordinary is absolutely essential to success as an actor on that program. Everybody on that show looks extraordinary. You know, like all I want to do is look at Luis Guzman. You know what I mean? All day long.
Me too.
Every day of my life, I would be happy to look at Luis Guzman.
Yes, me too.
But it is you look a very different kind of extraordinary on that show than you do on Severance, or than you did on Game of Thrones. And you wear these gorgeous suits. You're fitted on that program. You look like $1 million billion.
You
on
are
that show.
very kind.
But it's a very specific, it's a very specific aesthetic, and knowing how keen you are on fashion, and also knowing that you've probably had to make specific choices about your clothes, even on sets, simply because you probably don't wear off the rack sizes no matter what. That you must have had some involvement in the way that that character looks.
Yes, I did. I mean, it was truly the opportunity of a lifetime to work with Tim Burton. I've wanted to work with him my whole life. I never thought that would happen. I really didn't. When Pee-wee's came out, I must have seen it. I was about 8 years old. And I thought, I've said it so many times, I'll say it again. I thought, who is that directed by? Tim Burton. Who is this Tim Burton? And then I went to the cinema to watch every single thing that he did. Being tall, the age rating was irrelevant. But I just adored every single thing he did. And it was a big surprise when he spoke to me about being involved in this project about the Addams family. I think I even saw some of the casting being announced, and I thought, oh, why am I in that? Oh, they'll never have me in that. I'm so disappointed and furious. So disappointed by life. And then I got that call and spoke to Tim, and he was so kind and sweet and charismatic and very generously offered me the opportunity to be creatively involved. And this was my chance to step forward. And it took a lot for me to do it because it's Tim Burton. But I had my instinct. Weirdly, it was something that I'd wanted to inhabit since I was a child. I always loved Hitchcock films. When I'd sort of played truant from school, I'd watch movies, and I loved watching Hitchcock movies always. I was fascinated by this idea of the Hitchcock woman, that archetype, all of that strange mystery. But I didn't want her to be a victim. And I carried that with me. One of the things I sort of muse on sometimes. Imagine playing a part like that. Imagine being able to bring that alive, but to change it and develop it. And so it felt like this was the time. And I thought, no, that's a good idea. You might want to keep that for something else. And I thought, just try it and see what he says. Weirdly, he and Colleen Atwood had the same idea as me of Tippi Hedren in The Birds.
And she's the costume designer on the show.
The incredible Colleen Atwood. And I was delighted to be working with her and very nervous because she is truly legendary in her skill.
Because the clothes are like architectural.
Yes, well, they have to be. I think Tim's vision is so precise and varied and detailed.
Given your success in 3 of television's most popular and artistically successful shows for people who are extraordinary looking, which they
really got lucky.
All 3 of them are.
I really did get lucky.
Yeah, I mean, for real. You could just have to be on a, Stargate or something.
I wouldn't do that.
I would. If you're listening, if there's a new Stargate, I'm castable, SAG eligible.
And
Jesse
imagine
Thorn,
what he'll bring to
CAA.
it too. Imagine the extraordinary humor, richness, and spontaneity.
Thank you. I've been telling the Stargate people this for years.
It's coming. After this podcast, they're going to call you.
But given that you've had those experiences, you're playing at the...
You could just be on a Stargate.
Right? I mean, there's things that aren't good where it's important for the actors to look extraordinary. You know what I mean? Not that Stargate is bad.
No.
But it's fine. Do you think that, your next goal is to do that thing that you imagined, which is just be the best friend in a romantic comedy, or be somewhere where being normal and plain is essential to the character? Or do you think your next move is something even more extraordinary looking?
I never think about it from the outside, ever. I think...
I can tell that you think about the aesthetics of the things, though.
Yeah, well, that's to be worked on, but that's about storytelling. That's from my drama school, which is about creating the character. That's absolutely about being precise. That was really drilled into us, about being precise in every aspect. And I try to be precise in every aspect other than the clothes. It's, it's interesting. I'm interested in design, but I'm more interested in the communication of the character and also what that gives me, because what you put on your body changes you. It's quite interesting. Some things can actually change the pitch of your voice. It might be good to go with that, or it might be that you work against it. But for me, it's always a storytelling device. I'm happy these days to only think about how it makes me feel. And, that's both liberating and perhaps unhelpful, that I feel that I have to work with like-minded souls. And I want to work with people I feel I can truly create something with. I really don't know what it is. I see it and it speaks to me.
Do you think you'll be able to be satisfied by work in the future that doesn't involve livestock?
No.
Yeah. It'll always be missing a little something, right?
Maybe it has to be exclusively livestock work.
Don't be afraid of it, Put that out into the world.
I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. Apparently the hours I keep filming are comparable to a dairy farmer, so I might end up with those frisky Frisians.
I mean, maybe if you're lucky, they got that All Creatures Great and Small show going right now.
Well, I've always
maybe you can do a little lambing season.
Are you joking? So
not in the slightest.
Someone very close to me commented very early on that I have great similarity to Tricky Woo, and you know who that is, don't you? Do you know who that is?
Tricky Woo is the dog.
Yeah, yes. Now it's the end of a long day, but what kind of dog is it? It's not a Shih Tzu. It's a Pekingese.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm very Tricky Woo. Tricky Woo. Tricky Woo? Yes.
Yeah, Tricky Woo.
Yeah, Tricky Woo.
Tricky Woo is like the pampered dog of the rich lady in All Creatures Great and Small. Well, I sure appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for talking to me and for being so incredibly thoughtful with your questions. Thank you for being gentle with me.